The cinema, the source of both my greatest joy and one of my biggest stresses. Sometimes it seems like I spend a lot of my time here. My love of films means that I am always here watching the latest releases, and while there are some films I choose not to see, I do tend to see the majority of the films that are shown, almost compulsively at times. This is the side of the cinema that I love, the experience of watching movies. The other side of the cinema comes from the fact that I work here, something that strips away some of the magic of it all. It's not that I don't like working here, because that most definitely isn't the case. It's just that with my condition, this kind of work can be extremely jarring, and the stress that I associate with this kind of work being a cinema employee involves means that I can only handle a limited number of hours, with me generally only doing 1, perhaps 2 shifts a week. I once read on the internet a list that someone had produced of the 10 worst jobs for a person with Aspergers to do, and right at the top was retail work. The person who wrote this list was spot on. While I have no problem with the place I work at, or the people I work with, the kind of work that is entailed makes the job much more difficult for me than it would be for a neurotypical person. For a person like me who has difficulty with social interaction, dealing with customers all day often proves extremely intense, and I tend to burn out very quickly. As such, while I work my very hardest and do my very best, it is not uncommon for the work to have a draining effect on me that essentially sucks all the morale out of me. For the time being, I do enjoy working at the cinema, and I do cope, but when the time comes to find a full-time job, it will definitely be necessary to find something that is more friendly towards my disability. Sadly, my condition isn't merely a psychological one, but also one that has physical symptoms, the most notable being stress and anxiety. For this I have to take diazepam, one of which I take before I start work, and I always have a spare on me for emergencies. I only take the very minimum dosage and only when it is absolutely necessary, but it does help me quite a bit. Another physical symptom that often comes from the anxiety is gastric reflux and nausea, which itself is extremely unpleasant, and which I also have medication for. My job title is multifunctional. This means that I have to perform a variety of different tasks, with there being 4 areas where I can be assigned on a shift. These are box office, floor, concessions, and ice cream. How I cope generally depends on 2 factors. Firstly, what area I am assigned to, and the other being how busy it is. For example, if I am assigned to box office or floor, I typically cope quite well with the work, even when it is very busy. This is because the nature of the work on these areas really requires less specific skills than the other areas, and the demands are also less mentally and socially taxing, meaning that I can cope for much longer without my mind burning out. On box office, the routine is largely the same for every customer. This task is simple with a few variables, and with the exception of the occasional difficulty that arises, I perform it with minimum trouble. Floor is another area that I find pretty straightforward. One of the tasks that working on floor entails is taking tickets as customers walk through to the screen the film is showing in. While the sheer number of customers can be a bit overwhelming when it is very busy, the simple requirements of the task mean that I cope well, as it is pretty much the same routine for every customer. Being on floor also entails doing things like checking screens and cleaning. The cleaning can be time consuming and messy, but the fact that neither task generally involves customer interaction means that I cope quite well. The fact that working on floor doesn't involve too much interaction with customers provides few problematic situations means that I am extremely well suited to the task involved, as less interaction means that I am less likely to become overwhelmed. The other 2 areas are another matter entirely, however. Concessions is an area that I can cope with reasonably well when it is quiet, but when it is really busy, it really creates problems. There is no set routine to serving customers on the retail outlet areas for starters, with countless different products being on sale, each with its own particular preparation method, and obviously different customers want different products and in different combinations. This is the reason why I often get overwhelmed when working on retail. Each customer wants so many different items that it's easy to get things mixed up and forget orders, and it takes so long to serve one customer that there are usually several more by the time one has been served, and at times it seems like the line of customers is endless. There are so many different things to remember, and particularly when other jobs are also required in the area, it really becomes difficult, if not impossible, to keep up with it all. When I get overwhelmed like this, it becomes very easy to make mistakes. For example, I could accidentally pour Coke into a popcorn bag, or put tomato ketchup onto some popcorn. These aren't exactly problems with this particular job per se, but rather issues with working retail altogether. Whether it be a cinema, a supermarket, a shop, a cafe, a restaurant, whatever. The tasks that retail work involves are very poorly suited to those with Asperger's, or any kind of autism, due to the intense demands that often come with them and the fact that so much customer interaction is involved. This is one of the major problems that my condition poses for me. Because of the difficulties it creates, I can only handle limited hours because I burn out so quickly. In fact, after working one shift, I usually come so completely drained of both energy and morale, it takes me ages to fully recover. Some might call me lazy for not working more hours, but it isn't because I don't want to, it is simply because I cannot cope. Neurotypicals can cope with this kind of work without much difficulty and probably even enjoy it, but for someone like me it is extremely difficult. It is quite likely that some people with Asperger's may lack the ability to cope with this kind of job on any level, so I should consider myself lucky that I manage it at all. Despite the difficulties that I have working at the cinema, however, I still enjoy it. The people in charge are aware of my condition and how it affects me, and they do accommodate me wherever possible. Everyone I work with is very pleasant and supportive, and the general working atmosphere is nice. It is also nice to be working at a place that is so connected to my great love, film. I spend as much time here when I'm not working as I do when I am, watching all the films that I want. And as a privilege of a job, I get to see them all for free, something that makes most of the problems I face well worth facing. The magic of going to the cinema may have been diminished somewhat as a result of actually working here, and due to the fact that I know so much more now than when I used to, but it still provides an experience that I really look forward to, and something that I get great pleasure from in my life. It's the perfect outlet for my particular obsessive interest and helps me to get out of the house. It's just a shame that it isn't a more social activity. Asperger's is first and foremost a social disability. This is why my life is very difficult at times, and why I have very few close friends, with most of the people I know being more like acquaintances or colleagues than people who I am actually close to in any way. Much of this is attributed to the means by which people interact socially. Social activities often take place in the evening. I like to spend my evenings quietly at home, but this doesn't allow for much socialising because social interaction predominantly involves going to bars, pubs, clubs, parties, etc. Essentially, it involves staying out late, drinking lots of alcohol in venues that are often very crowded and usually very loud. Many people do this as a matter of course, particularly students, something that makes even socialising with university classmates quite difficult at times. To most neurotypicals, this kind of interaction is an enjoyable and pleasurable experience, but for people like me, it is rather an unpleasant and overwhelming one. Due to the stressful nature of such interaction, I usually stay at home in the evenings where everything is under my control. This is of course quite lonely, but given that I feel so uncomfortable in environments that are loud, crowded and full of people who drink so much that they lose many of their inhibitions, staying in is the only way that I feel completely secure and comfortable. At least I have plenty of things to do to keep my mind occupied, although I do still frequently wish for some companionship. It's certainly not that I don't want to interact socially, or that I haven't tried such a social activity, mind you. On several occasions, I've been out with a group of people from work. During each of these nights out, however, I felt like a complete outcast. I did not enjoy myself, and I just felt like an outsider who didn't belong there, and who no one would miss if I wasn't there. The way I felt was just like a lone tree. It really makes no difference whether the tree lies in the middle of a desert, or whether it lies in the middle of a forest. The tree is just as alone either way. I even tried being drunk on one occasion and found it to be an immensely unappealing experience, amounting to feelings of extreme depression as opposed to the pleasurable feeling it allegedly induces. Since that experience, I have not been out with the people from work again, with the exception of a couple of Christmas parties organised by the cinema, and I have also never been drunk again. I do still drink alcohol, but I am an extremely occasional drinker, only consuming it once every now and then. One thing that keeps my mind busy is going on the internet. The internet can be a great thing for someone like me. It is a great source of information and knowledge, and the technology allows me to communicate with the outside world, but with the potential to remain anonymous, which means that I can be as open or as closed to the world as I choose to be. Also, I am not forced to participate in it, and when I do choose to participate, it is under my own rules, with my access being completely controlled. This is almost ideal for someone like me. At times it does almost feel addictive, but it does at least help to distract me from the problems that I am experiencing. Most of my time online is spent looking at movie-related content, such as looking up cinema and DVD release dates and movie box office data. One of the positive things that's come from my condition is an ability to remember massive amounts of information about movies and box office information, which is one of the things I'm very good at. Me utilising my predictive skills in an online game where I have to predict how films are going to perform. I also use the internet to find images of my favourite movie stars as well as watch movie trailers. Most of the stuff that I buy now comes from the internet as well, due to the fact that everything is cheaper, and it really helps to get the most out of my money I have, with me having become quite good at managing my finances. The internet is also a very useful resource for my university studies, and also for looking up information about Aspergers Syndrome and getting in touch with other Aspies. In the past, I have also attempted using the internet for the purposes of meeting new people, in particular girls. However, my experiences with dating sites and such have left me very sour on them, although social networking sites such as Facebook and MySpace are much more productive, particularly with regard to making contact with old friends who I haven't seen in a very long time. I also post movie reviews that I write on the internet, on both an online film blog called Battle Royale with Cheese, and the Facebook group that I have created. I have amassed quite a following. I also have an autism blog called The Wonderful World of Autism, where I repost articles that I come across about success stories of people with autism and Asperger's, accompanied by personal commentary. At times it does feel like I spend more time than I should on the internet, and lately I've been trying to cut back on the amount of time I'm online, utilising my time instead for other purposes. The other thing that I spend my private time doing is watching my many DVDs. Among my DVDs I have a bit of everything, with my taste covering a wide variety of film types, both movies and TV shows. Because I have such a variety, I can guarantee that I will always have something to watch, whatever mood I am in. Sometimes even something really simple can keep me transfixed. For example, simple children's toys that come from Kinder's eggs. Or things that are sparkly and glittery. Or things of beauty such as the spinning of a Euler's disc. Or the majesty of stars being shone to the ceiling by a projector. Or better yet, the real stars themselves in all their glory. Many people with Asperger's or other forms of autism tend to appreciate things that are beautiful and that are shiny, perhaps more so than many others.